Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "He caused me to get in a serious wreck, so I ruined his brand new Mustang." I had a jerk in high school who thought it would be funny to hit my car with a frozen water balloon while I was driving. It caused a pretty bad wreck and he split the scene of the accident. I had cuts all over my face from the flying glass and broke my arm in the accident. My car got totaled and so did the other drivers. The cops said I could not prove who did it and the other driver just saw a kid running away. I ended up without a car for almost a year before I could buy something else. So a few years later, this jerk gets a brand new Mustang from his dad as an early graduation gift. I promptly set out one morning in the school parking lot with a little revenge kit I had set up. As luck would have it, he parked in the far end of the parking lot by the woods where no one could see me and was even nice enough to park in 2 parking spaces to make sure no one would ding his doors. So I took a syringe and stuck it in between the window and window sill and squirted a mixture of soy sauce, Worcestershire, urine, and blue leather stain. The car's interior was creme leather. Now, it was hot out that day, so the smell was going to get ripe as the day went on. I then took out 2 metal-gallon jugs of 20% muriatic acid, a really strong acid prepared from hydrogen chloride that has many purposes like leather processing, descaling, and more, poured them very generously over the whole car. Just to make sure that he was thrice ducked, I poured a gallon of gas mixed with sugar into his gas tank. I wasn't around to see his reaction, but I hear that it wasn't pretty, and after he tries to wipe up the interior to try and go save what was left of the paint job, the engine locked up half a mile away. I didn't see that Mustang the rest of senior year. The next one is titled, "Strategic Planning, Major Payoff." When I was 21, I had just moved to a new city into a townhome-style apartment with some friends of mine. We all had jobs at a tire factory and as such worked shift work. When we moved in, we were given very explicit parking spots that were conveniently unmarked. These parking spots were not in front of our townhouse, they were a few buildings down. Fast forward a few months, the king of prick moves in a few doors down from us, right by our parking spots. This guy was a real piece of work. I overheard him making fun of our neighbor's daughter who has cerebral palsy. He was saying something about how it must suck to be ugly and knowing nobody would ever want to touch you. Anyway, my roommates and I were working nights one time from 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., so we generally slept the days away. It was early spring, all the snow was melting, and the city issued some signs saying that the streets had to be cleared on whatever day they could clean the gravel, rocks, garbage from the winter months. Our parking spots weren't on the street, they were in a parking lot place off the street. So we parked and went to sleep like normal. We wake up, go to do our regular routine, and boom, vehicles are all gone. We do some calling around and find out they were towed. So we go through this hassle of finding a way down there, paying the fees, and getting our vehicles back. Between the cab rides, tow fees, tickets, and a few missed work hours, this ended up costing us about $500 each. Our horrible neighbor ends up telling us in passing the next day how he forgot to move his cars. So, he called the cops and reported that he couldn't park off the street because somebody was illegally parked in his spot. The police ran our plates, got our address, and apparently tried ringing the doorbell, which none of us heard because we were sleeping. I'm not sure about my roommates, but I was still adjusting to shift work and slept with my AC on plus earplugs. So yeah, we were pretty mad about all of this. We had a few conversations on how we could get back at the neighbor. One night, we came up with this: the neighbor had a pretty decent girlfriend. I'm not really sure why she was with him, maybe he was nice to people that slept with him. Regardless, we followed his schedule for a while. His girlfriend was out of the house at the same times on the same days, working, Tuesday to Saturday, 8 to 4:30. It helped that I worked with this chick at Future Shop to know her schedule. We staged a few fake pizza deliveries, and this dude never answered the door if she was home. Easy enough. So one Monday that summer, we called a working girl. We told this chick exactly what to say in any situation. Took about 2 hours of coaching and going through mock situations, but it played out flawlessly. It did cost us $100 an hour for 3 hours. We sent her over there, she knocked, the girlfriend opened the door. The working girl, with a stunned look, said, "Oh no, is Tuesday tomorrow?" The girlfriend then started questioning why some chick is coming around, but we gave this girl answers to everything. She started talking about how she's been coming every Tuesday for months. Things start getting louder. The neighbor was at the door at this point, saying stuff like, "Baby, I have no idea what she's talking about." Then the kill shot. The girl starts talking about dates she came over. That girlfriend was out of town, nothing a random person would know. After they started yelling at each other, the girl we paid took off. There's no way any person would admit to seeing a working girl every day for months, so he was pretty much ruined. They were yelling at each other for a good 10 minutes before they took it indoors. She moved out by Friday. Mission accomplished. The next one is titled, "They Got the Ultimate Revenge Wedding." This has to do with my friend's wife, and her family, and my friend's mum, the evil mother-in-law. My friend's wife's family is of Sinti background. Now Sinti and Roma heritages have a bad reputation here in Germany. They are called gypsies, and supposedly are all scam artists, which have no real home and travel around to be always 2 steps ahead of the law on their heels. But her family is actually really well off, lives in Germany for well over 30 years and owns their own company that produces motor parts for several big car and truck companies. In fact, quite a bit richer than the mother-in-law, but she did not know that. The mother-in-law has never asked, decided that her prejudices are a better source of information than simply asking, since all gypsies lie. Now how much the company is worth is really not all that important, but to paint a picture, they employ well over 250 people just in production alone, and on top of that, all the other staff from IT, over clerks and whatnot. The mother-in-law's family is typical middle class, nothing much to say there, which makes the mother-in-law's assumption she is a gold digger hilariously wrong. My friend's dad works an office job, and his mum, the mother-in-law, works delivering drugs for a pharmacy a couple of hours a week. Now, since there was so much leading up to the wedding, here's basically what happened, and most of what the mother-in-law did was typical just no behavior. In the first year of the relationship, the mother-in-law pretty much ignored her son had a girlfriend until she sees a photo and realizes the daughter-in-law is a few shades too brown for her taste, her words. A friend then explained to the mother-in-law that the girlfriend is Sinti, and she lost it even more. It boiled down to her being a gold digger or scam artist, or constantly switching between the two. But the friend has a steel spine, and it ended in her being in a timeout for 6 months, which became over a year, since every time the mother-in-law tried to force contact, the timeout started again at 0. Once contact was established again, the mother-in-law had realized open warfare was not something she could win, so she decided to switch to guerrilla tactics. The absolute highlight was creating 2 fake Facebook profiles, one for a friend, and one for his ex, with which he had spent 4 years of his life. At this point, she sends back and forth texts for months, to create a fake affair. My friend had 4 weeks prior to a 4-day business trip for his company. The texts basically claimed his ex had come with him and they had wild hookups every night. What the mother-in-law did not know was that the friend never went there. It fell through a week prior, and he took the days off instead to do a short trip with his girlfriend. So he had the best possible alibi for the time, being with the woman he supposedly cheated on 24/7. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened on the day the mother-in-law came into the house with printed out screenshots from that page. At first, the girlfriend was devastated and upset, until they found the messages about the business trip. In that moment, they both turned on the mother-in-law, who of course denied everything. It landed her in 9 months' time out again. The rest until the engagement was a flow of constant hints. The mother-in-law appeared to have learned her lesson about open attacks and racist rants, at least, of her not being trustworthy, bringing up news stories that showed Sinti in a negative light, etc. But since they were low contact, meeting twice a year and the one or other phone call, she did not have many opportunities. Then came the engagement about 1 year before the wedding. The daughter's family was over the moon, of course. They are very just, but describing them in detail too would make the story too long. While the mother-in-law had a complete meltdown over the phone, she said she would stop this wedding if it is the last thing she does with her life. The actual wedding planning began, and it was a total crap show. When she was asked for an address list, she actually gave them false addresses, in the hopes that once the cards would have been returned, it would be too late to send a new batch to the actual addresses. Of course, the cards came back within a week, and this time they were smart enough to ask someone else for the addresses, and simply did not tell her. The mother-in-law started a rumor campaign that was at least partially successful, so the contact to his side of the family got worse and worse. She tried to just cancel the flowers, but since the florist knew the bride in person, he called her to confirm. After that, everything was secured with passwords. This way they found out she also tried to cancel the venue, change the whole menu. Most of the bride's side of the family is vegetarian, and she tried to change it to an all-meat menu, and other shenanigans. Finally, came the thing that made my friend and his fiancée snap and decides it is time to show the idiot who is boss. He had found out, thanks to his brother, who had volunteered to work as a spy in the enemy camp. He acted like he was on his mother's side, when in reality he was firmly in his brother camp, that all the women on his side planned to come in black mourning clothes, to make it clear this was not a day of joy for them, but a day of mourning, since her son made the biggest mistake of his life. But since they wanted to embarrass her to the bone, they acted as if they knew nothing, and decided to exact their revenge on the wedding day. Important, this was a good 4 months before the wedding, so it gave the young couple ample time to plan. The day of the wedding arrives. All the guests have entered the church and are sitting down. The guests are informed that the wedding party will be late by about half an hour, but they would show a DVD in the meantime. That DVD? It was explosive. They had collected evidence, and witness accounts detailing exactly how sneaky the mother-in-law had tried to sabotage the wedding. It started with an account from the food caterer that she had tried several times to change the menu. Followed by the florist's story about how she had tried to cancel all the flowers for the wedding, including a message she left on the answering machine trying to act like she was the daughter-in-law, but everybody who knew her could hear it was the mother-in-law's voice. Up to this point, the mother-in-law had been shocked into silence. But the next part would change that. You see, the groom's brother had secretly recorded how she trash-talked and lied about her daughter-in-law to everybody who would listen to her on Skype. The brother simply installed spy software that recorded everything, emails, Skype, etc., and created a highlight reel. After all, she used his computer to do all that. Once she started to hear those words, she suddenly screeched like a banshee and stormed to the front to stop the DVD from playing. But everyone had anticipated that, so before she could even get close, 3 gentlemen closed in on her and told to either sit down or she would be escorted off the premise. The film only went on for another 3 or so minutes anyway, and they escorted her back to her place. Where was her family in all this? They had already had a full showing of the video the day before but were sworn to secrecy. So they acted as normal as they could until the DVD was finished. Now once the film was over, the father went up to the altar with his wife and addressed the family of the groom. He told them the following: "Our daughter could have accepted you do not like her and has tried for years to have a good relationship with all of you, especially with mother-in-law, but to no avail. Our daughter was either insulted or shut down." Finally, they started to plan the wedding, and mother-in-law was trying everything to ruin this very special day for the two of them. And so, they finally had enough. The couple has decided your side of the family does not deserve to be at the wedding. I hereby inform you that there will not be a wedding today at all. They changed the wedding date months ago. My daughter and your son got married a week ago at XX location and let you believe the wedding would be today. That way we could ensure there would be no further evil plans to ruin this young couple's wedding, and we all had a wonderful wedding. Without any of you there, it was a day of joy, and a day where everybody was happy for the couple and acted very supportive. Right now they are already on their honeymoon and will return in 4 weeks. Since the wedding was so much smaller than originally planned, they had a way bigger budget for their honeymoon. Once they return, they do not want any contact with any of you for a year. After that, they are ready to get into contact again under certain requirements, which you will be told once the year is over. As mother-in-law will be able to confirm, they will remain very strict to this rule. Any attempt to contact them in any form leads to the perpetrator's year to start again at 0. I suggest you take the year to reflect on your behavior and decide what is more important to you, to have your son and his new wife in your life, or to treat my daughter badly, because right now he is ready to cut contact for good. But I talked him into giving you one last chance. Friends and family stayed very silent during this speech, probably shocked and embarrassed into silence. The mother-in-law was not the only one in the family treating the daughter in badly, but she was the reason for it. They are back in contact with most of the family, but definitely not the mother-in-law. After the year was over, some family members sheepishly apologized and told the couple about all the lies they were told. But the brother, using his evidence, showed the family how mother-in-law triangulated, lied, tricked, etc. Today, the mother-in-law is a pariah from at least 80% of the family. The next one is titled, "Decide to Cheat a Web Designer." I'll sell your website to your competitor and sue you. Let's go back to January 2014. We design a full working website. 15 pages, one of the best pages in our client's immediate area, by far, and that's not because it was our work. He literally had shit competitors. We finish the website, try to get a hold of him, and he's traveling for business to find partners and vendors. He asks us to send it live since he'll be meeting a few people, and once he makes it back home, he'll send out the invoice. January 20th. We still haven't heard anything back. We email him, nothing. We call him, nothing. We spoof our phone number, instant pickup, and he gives us a BS excuse that he's been up to his neck with work but has us on his schedule. February 20th. Nothing from said client. We decided to pull down his website after sending him 10 emails, calling him 5 times, and sending him 3 warnings. February 20th, 9 p.m, he calls me pissed off that he's in the middle of a conference and hasn't been able to check his emails or phone. But a client told him that his website was down. Keep in mind we're hosting his website as well. March 15th. We again tried to call him, etc. Nothing comes out of it. For this particular client, March to April was the busiest time of year. His website was getting 100+ visitors per day and people were actually using a lead generation form. We again decided to shut it down and he immediately called us back. Due to the fact that you have disrupted my business multiple times, we're not going to pay. You need to have our website transferred away from your servers and into our servers or we will pursue damages. March 16th. We contact our attorney, a few companies, and I partnered up to have an attorney on retainer. $120 per month for free legal services when we need them? Not bad at all. The attorney tells us to duck him, our contract protects us, and to simply bring down the site. March 17th. We shut down the website and put a for sale advertisement on the site. We start to advertise the website on Facebook and contact several of his competitors. March 17th. Client calls us and tells us that he's getting an attorney and that I'm not authorized to sell his domain name or website generic-city-keyword.com that we were going to sell to him. But he never paid. March 18th. Competitor in desperate need of clients calls up. He doesn't really have the money up front, but he will meet us with a cashier's check for $1,500 and $500 in cash if we can sell it to him. He'll pay us $500 per month for the next 5 months for the rest. March 19th. We transfer the site, and our new client instantly gets a call from a new vendor and he pays us the rest of the money that same day. March 21st th. We get a lawsuit from an attorney. March 27th. We counter-sue and go to court. Attorney business. April 20th. We go to court, ex-client loses. He pays for all our damages and attorney fees and pays us $700 for lost time. Present, client has a website tonight page, 0 SEO ranking, and he has lost a lot of business. His company was one that lived or died through SEO services. He lost 4 employees that ended up getting hired by the guy who bought the website. We saw our new client at a chamber event and he couldn't be happier. He was about 8 months from going broke, and now he has a business that is expanding. He does lawn care, Christmas light installs, flower shop, pumpkin sales, and Christmas tree sales. Every season he has something else going on. The website has a page for each of the services and seasons and gets him a bunch of traffic during those times. The next one is titled, How I Ended Up with My Boss's Job. I was working for an advertising agency, a pretty big one. I had unethical manager. Well, when I started out I had a manager who was one of the most unethical managers I've ever dealt with. He'd order his sales reps to do things that would increase his bonuses, which are based on margins. Example, say a client decided to buy product XYZ and their spend was $2,000 a month. He would want the agent to put up products ABC and keep the spend at $2,000. Even though the client didn't agree to that. Fact is, the clients generally wouldn't notice, but if they did, it could cost you your job. I was the guy that refused his demands. He would tell me to cheat the client and I would refuse. He would get mad. I wouldn't care. This went on for quite a while. Now there is something I don't tell people very often. I live in a one-party consent state, which means so long as I'm aware a conversation is being recorded, I can record it without informing the other party. I had just upsold my largest client, making him even larger, but I didn't sell the products my boss wanted me to sell. He demanded I switch things around. I refused. I told him I sold the client XYZ. That's what we agreed to. I'm not going to change that without the customer permission. His exact words were, "Duck the customer, this is your largest client, I need him on ABC or I'm not going to make my number, I'm sorry, but you and I both know ABC isn't right for this client and that's why he didn't buy it, you're fired, if you can't follow instructions you're fired." After confirming he was dead serious, I said, "If you do that, I'll have your job by the end of the month." I went home, I didn't think he'd go through with it. Sure as shit, next morning I'm locked out of all our systems. I call tech support and get told I've been fired. So who do I call? I call our regional vice president and tell him I have several recordings I think he should listen to. Remember, my boss ordering me to do unethical things wasn't uncommon. So I meet up with my RVP and play 6 different recordings that I had saved showing my manager was pushing his agents to break the law. To which my RVP leaned back in his chair and let out a sigh, knowing he had to fire my manager. Having a sales manager that is forcing his reps to break the law is just bad business. At which point I asked for my job back. He agreed that I would get my job back and asked me to take the week off and call him on Monday. He told me he'd talk to payroll and make sure I got paid for this week as well. FYI, he fulfilled all of his promises with me, although I missed a payday but got back pay later, so I was fine with that. That Monday I come into our Monday morning meeting in which my RVP was there. He informed the entire team that my boss had been fired and why. He also mentioned that if anyone wanted to apply for his job there was now an opening. So I applied for and after 3 rounds of interview got my promotion. Sure as crap I was right, I did have my boss's job by the end of the month. It was glorious the first day walking into his office and sitting in his nice big comfy chair. The last one is titled, "They messed up his important flight, so he'll never recommend them ever again." I was doing some hour training at work today and the hour rep told a story which was given as an example of one of the consequences of poor customer service. When my coworker was going to be married, the wedding was out of state so as to be closer to his and the bride's families. One of his friends who were going to be in attendance had to fly coast to coast across the US in order to attend. On the day of the wedding, his flight was cancelled, and the airline refused to rebook him a flight in time, and on top of that were not at all kind or hospitable. As a result, he missed his good friend's wedding, and this P*SSED him off. What the airline didn't know was that this particular person worked as a travel agent. His job was to book commercial flights for large groups. This airline was one of the bigger international airlines based in the US, and someone he would normally consider when booking flights. However, after this airline refused to rebook his cancelled flight and caused him to miss his best friend's wedding, he refused to even consider them as an option for his clients. He was so upset by the airline's customer service, that he even kept track of how many times he could have booked a flight with them, but instead chose another, perhaps even more expensive option. Over the next couple of years, he cost the airline over $2 million in lost revenue because they were rude to him and refused to rebook his flight, causing him to miss his friend's wedding. Thanks for listening.